Hi everyone, I hope you're having a great start to the semester. Welcome to Unit 1, where we're going to be talking about literacy matters, why it matters in all contexts, in all spaces, and in all classes. So to get started, you're supposed to have read Chapter 1 of your book. This is a great intro to kind of what we're going to be talking about throughout the semester. This chapter just talked about effective teaching in the content areas, how you can differentiate instruction, and then teaching literacy in the 21st century. So to provide a brief recap of what you read and to ensure that you're getting the big ideas that are important from this chapter, I wanted to go through some of these. So first, a brief summary of effective teacher characteristics. Teachers need general intelligence and verbal ability, of course, strong content knowledge, so knowing the material that you're teaching. You need a knowledge of how to teach others, so the pedagogical knowledge. You need to understand learners and their development, and then you also want to be adaptive and flexible and be able to make judgments about what it's like to work in a given context in response to student needs. You also want to make sure you're balancing your content and the process that you are teaching it. So knowing your standards for your content area and your grade level, and then continuing to make instructional decisions based on those authentic assessments that you conduct throughout the school year. And then, of course, what we're going to be working on specifically here is integrating content literacy practices and strategies into your instructional plans and units of study. You also, of course, as Vaca and Maraz talked about, have to provide differentiated instruction to your students. So you have to be willing to move beyond assigning and telling. You want to plan and organize learning opportunities so that students will be actively engaged. And then, of course, meet the skill, needs, interests, and learning styles of a wide range of students, which obviously can be very difficult, especially if you have a large class. When we move into the scope of where we're talking about literacy, it's important to know that the term literacy has morphed to characterize someone's level of knowledge or competence in a particular area or subject in a multimodal society. And literacy has come to represent a synthesis of language, thinking, and contextual practices through which people make and communicate meaning. So when you think about literacy, it's not just reading and writing, but more than that, it's going to alter how you teach this in your classes. Of course, we also have to think about how text can be defined in the 21st century. That texts include not only print forms of communication, but also non-print forms that are digital, oral, or visual in nature. And so that's going to change what you're having your students read in class. When we look at the term new literacies and connect it to our curriculum and to today's learning environment, we realize it's necessary for students to use information and communication technologies effectively. So this includes anything on the internet. Social media would be a communication technology. Google can be information technology. And we want our students to know how to identify, navigate, critically evaluate, synthesize, and communicate. So obviously this changes a little bit about how we're teaching because we want to make sure these skills are embedded in our content and our assessments and our instruction. So now that we've recapped from the reading a little bit, I want to add some new ideas and talk a little bit more about reading with your students. Content area reading is about supporting students as they learn how to use reading in the learning process. When students start school, they're focusing on learning how to read, but as they progress through the elementary grades, students need to start making the transition from learning how to read to reading to learn in the various content areas. One important aspect of the reading to learn process is learning how to construct meaning from text. It's important for teachers to design instruction so that readers are actively involved with the reading process rather than passively receiving textual information through transmission. Designing lessons appropriately can help students engage with constructive reading. You see here the traditional format for reading assignments as well as a new format suggested by research. Notice in the old model that reading is not supported, but rather is just assigned. In the new model, more instruction time is provided for the reading assignment in order to prepare students for the content they will encounter. Teachers then guide students through active reading, and discussion is used to clarify, reinforce ideas, and extend what students learn from the reading. By structuring lessons in this manner, teachers are assisting students in becoming active readers. As teachers design reading lessons, it is essential to consider the reader and the varied dimensions that come into play during the reading process. Here are 5 different factors that must be considered. To understand how these dimensions affect reading, we can look at this heuristic that was provided by the RAND report in 2002. Here, we have a view of reading for understanding that involves the reader, the text, the activity, all within a sociocultural context. This shows how the sociocultural context surrounds everything a reader does. I hope the recap of your reading and the little bit extra I added on about reading with your students was helpful. I look forward to hearing you discuss these ideas on Flipgrid this week. I can't wait to see your thoughts and what you've come up with.